Hello, Bobcats. Mrs. Wilhite. We're still in Chapter 6. We're moving into Lesson 11. You have seen this skill before, dividing. All of Chapter 4, we focused on division. Well, today we're going to divide with decimals. So it is a 5th grade standard. It's something you have to learn in 5th grade. I'm hoping at the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to divide a decimal by a whole number. Why, Mrs. Wilhite? What's the main idea? Why do I have to learn this? Well, you're going to be buying things in bulk. You're going to be buying things in packs. So you might buy something that has 5 items in it for $5.25. You want to know how much are you paying for one of those things. So if you buy a bag of 5 for $5.25, you can divide that decimal by the whole number 5 and realize how much you paid for each of them. So again, today's skill has to do with spending your money. You're going to be using this in real life. All right, Bobcats, what do you already know about dividing? Well, you know the steps of division, right? Dad, mom, sister, brother. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So what is the quotient, or what is the answer when we divide 360 by 4? Well, we know the first step is divide. 4 divides into 36 9 times. There's going to be 9 in each of those 4 groups. Next, I'm going to multiply. 9 times 4 is 36. I can go ahead and subtract 36. Bring down that last digit, a 0. Well, I can't make a group of 4 if I brought down 0. I don't have anything, so it won't divide into 0. So what is the quotient when dividing 360 by 4? That's 90. So from my experience, I already know the steps of division, and that's going to help us in today's lesson. All right, what are the steps for today? Well, you can see there's a new step for number 1. We're going to put that decimal in your quotient, in your answer. So the very first thing before we divide today is to make sure that decimal will go into our answer. Step 2, we're going to divide, right? We know these steps: divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, or dad, mom, sister, brother. Finally, see if it's reasonable. Does your answer make sense? So really the biggest thing is this new step 1, putting that decimal into your quotient today. Okay, I'm going to jump right into guided practice. Step 1, I'm going to bring the decimal into my quotient. Notice the decimal just goes straight up into your answer. Okay, make sure it's lined up perfectly. Bring that decimal up as step 1. Then I'm going to go ahead and divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Those solid steps we learned in Chapter 4 when we divide. Well, I know 3 divides into 4 one time. 3 times 1 is 3. I can go ahead and subtract. Bring down the 8. We're going to go ahead and go back to divide. How many times will 3 divide into 18? Well, that's 6. I know that 3 times 6 is 18, so I can subtract 18. Okay, I can bring down for that next step. What am I going to bring down? Well, I'm going to bring down a 3. How many times will 3 divide into 3? 1 time. What is 3 times 1? Well, that's 3. I can go ahead and subtract 3. Well, if I have 3 and I gave 3 away, there's absolutely nothing left. So finally, I can bring down that last 3. How many times will 3 divide into 3? 1 time. What is 3 times 3? Well, that's 3. I can subtract it. And then there's nothing to bring down. I have the answer. Now I need to figure out, is it reasonable? Does it make sense? Well, I'm going to check by multiplying. My answer is close to the whole number 16, or $16. If I multiplied 16 times 3, I would get 48. And that's pretty close to the dividend. So it makes sense that my answer would be 16 11/100ths. Okay, again, step 1, we brought that decimal up. 2, we divided, multiplied, subtract, brought down, and finally our answer is reasonable. All right, we're going to go ahead and try some independent practice. Step 1 is where we bring the decimal into our quotient. Well, I'm going to go ahead and write the problem. I'm going to try number 4. Okay, and it says, how many times will 11 divide into 22 and 11/100ths? Step 1. Bring your decimal into your quotient. Sometimes we're in such a hurry we forget step 1, but don't forget to bring that decimal straight up. Now we can do our divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. I know that 11 will divide into 22 twice. Okay, 11 times 2, well, that's 22. I can go ahead and subtract. There's nothing left. Next, I can bring down the 1. I cannot make a group of 11 from 1. I can't divide, so I'm going to put a 0. Well, what is 11 times 0? 0. I can go ahead and subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. Finally, bring down the 1. Going back to divide. How many times will 11 divide into 11? 1 time. What's 11 times 1? Well, we know it's 11, right? That identity property. We can go ahead and subtract. What's 11 minus 11? Well, nothing. And there's absolutely nothing to bring down. So I think I have an answer. But remember that last step. Is it reasonable? Well, I'm going to estimate my dividend, the number I divided by, to 22. It's pretty close to 22. It's $22 and some change, right? And then I'm going to multiply 22. I'm going to take my divisor, which is 11. Here it is. And I'm going to multiply by my answer, which is pretty close to 2. And 11 times 2 does give me that dividend. It's close to 22. My answer is reasonable. I can go ahead and move on. Okay, we're still in independent practice. We're going to try number 6. We're going to divide and check with multiplication. Step 1, we're going to bring that decimal into our quotient. Bring it straight up so we have that decimal. Then we're going to go ahead and dad, mom, sister, brother, divide first. 8 goes into 12 one time. What is 8 times 1? Well, 8. I can subtract it. There's 4 left over. Bring down that other 4. Notice I haven't dealt with the decimal down here in my work. The decimal went straight into the quotient, and then I pretty much ignore it at that point. Once you bring your decimal into your answer, you're done with the decimal for a while. Okay, going back to divide. How many times will 8 divide into 44? Well, I think 8 will divide into 44 5 times. Notice I put the 5 above the 4. The 4 was what I brought down, so I need to make sure that 5 is right above that 4. Go ahead and multiply. What is 8 times 5? Well, I know 8 times 5 is 40. I can go ahead and subtract 40. Okay, what's after subtract? Bring down. Well, there's nothing to bring down, and I have 4 left over. I tricked you. There is something to bring down, but Mrs. Wallhite, there's nothing there. What is the value of nothing? The value of nothing is 0. I can bring down a 0 because 0 has no value. And now, once I bring down that 0, I go back to divide. How many times will 8 divide into 40? Well, I know that's 5 times. What is 8 times 5? 40. Let's subtract the 40. There's nothing left. I have an answer. So notice in this problem it was a little different because we cannot have remainders. If you have something left over and nothing to bring down a 0 and continue to divide. I can't move on. I still need to see if my answer is reasonable. Well, my divisor was 8, so I can multiply 8 times that 1.55 or 1 55 hundredths. Well, that's pretty close to 2. So my answer should be close to the whole number 16. Well, That's not really going to work. Maybe I can estimate it to 1. Because 1.55 is somewhat in the middle, right? We know that our dividend, the number here, should be close to 16 or 8. And sure enough, 12 is in the middle of that. So 1 and 55 hundredths will work. All right, let's go ahead and try number 7. Bring your decimal into your quotient. This is a very important step, so I don't want to forget to bring that decimal up. How many times will 14 divide into 14? 1. I can multiply. What's 14 times 1? Well, that's 14. I can go ahead and subtract. Next is bring down. I have to bring down the 1. I cannot divide 14 into 1, so I'm going to go ahead and put my 0. Notice it's on that side above the 1. Multiply. 14 times 0, that's 0. I can subtract. 1's left over. Bring down the last digit, which is a 4. How many times will 14 divide into 14? Once. What is 14 times 1? Well, that's 14. I can go ahead and subtract. There's nothing left, nothing to bring down, so let's check and see if it's reasonable. 14 is the number of groups, that's my divisor, times my quotient or the answer, and I get 14. That is really close to the dividend, so I know my answer is reasonable. All right, we're still in independent practice. We're going to go ahead and try number 13. I'm going to bring that decimal up into my quotient for step number 1. How many times will 24 divide into 75? Well, that's close to a quarter, right? So 25 cents times 3. So I think it's 3. And I'm going to multiply 24 times 3. And I get 72. I can subtract 72. There's 3 left over. Bring down the next digit, which is a 4. How many times will 24 divide into 34? Well, that's 1. Notice I put the 1 above the 4 on the right side of the decimal. Multiply 24 times 1. Well, I know I can subtract 24. There's 10 left over. Let's bring down that 8, that last digit. How many times will 24 divide into 108? Well, I already know 3 is too small, so let's try 4. 16, 8, 96. I don't think I'm going to get any closer than 96, so let's go ahead and put a 4 and subtract 96. Well, there's 2 left over. 10 minus 9 is 12. Oh no, there's nothing left to bring down. What do? I can't have a remainder. Well, this is where you can go ahead and put your 0. There's nothing here, so it has to be a 0 because 0 has no value or is nothing. Now I can go ahead and divide. I think it's going to be 5. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 2 is 10, 11, 12. It's perfect. So I can go ahead and put 5 and subtract 120. There's nothing left. All right, Bobcats, we know that we better check and see if our answer makes sense. Is it reasonable? Well, I'm going to take the 24 divisor, the number of groups, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 3 and see if I get something close to 75. Well, 72 is close to 75. The answer is 3 and 145 thousandths. Moving into problem solving, Mandy and 5 of her friends bought a package of bottled water for $4.98. How much will each friend pay to the nearest cent if the cost is divided equally? So how much does each of the 5 friends have to pay? Step 1, bring your decimal into your quotient. 5 will not divide into 4. Okay, I know 5 times 0 is 0, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 0. I have 4 left over. Bring down the 9. Now the 9 is on the right side of the decimal, so I'm going to make sure to put my digit in the right spot. 5 goes into 49. How many times will it divide? Well, 5 times 9 is 45. So that's as close as I'm going to get. 48. Bring down that 8. Well, I already know that 9 is going to be 45. That's as close as I'm going to get. What is 8 minus 5? Well, that's 3. Oh, no. Remember, no remainders. So we can go ahead and add a 0 and bring down that 0. So now our number is 30. Well, 5 goes into 30 6 times. So how much money is that? Well, notice that it says, how much will each friend pay to the nearest cent? So we're going to have to round. Okay, how much are they going to have to pay to the nearest cent? Well, if I were rounding this, I would say $1, but it's not asking us for $1. Each friend will need to pay 99 cents. If each friend pays 99 cents, then that should be pretty close to the total. Now, if they pay $1 each, they're going to have some money left over. Number 18, problem solving. The total cost of 4 movie tickets is $33.40. What is the cost of 1 ticket? Well, that's the price of 4. So step 1, bring your decimal up. How many times will 4 divide into 33? Well, that's going to be 7 times. What is 4 times 7? Well, 28. I can subtract. See what's left over. I have to borrow. 13 minus 8 is 5. Bring down. Oh, if I have a 5 left over, what does that mean, Bobcats? That means we better try one more. I can make another group of 4 here. So again, when you subtract, if you get an answer that's bigger than your divisor, you got to go one more time. What is 8 times 4? Well, that's 32. I can subtract. 1 works because it's not bigger than 4. And if I bring down the 4, I have 14. How many times will 4 divide into 14? 3 times. What is 4 times 3? Well, that's 12. I can subtract 12. And 2 is smaller than my divisor. So I know that it's okay that I did 3 groups of 4. Finally, bring down that 0. How many times will 4 divide into 20? Okay, well, 20 is left over. I know 4 will divide into 20 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. I can subtract. There's nothing left. So each person or each one of those tickets cost $8.35. All right, Bobcats, what did you learn today? Well, in summary, today I learned that when you divide a decimal by a whole number, you can use that in real life. When you're figuring out the cost of one item when you purchased a bunch, you want to see, is your money being spent well? Okay, also the movies, right? When you go to the movies with a bunch of people and they give you the total and you need to figure out how much each person owes you. Well, you want to be able to do that math correctly, right? When we deal with money, we oftentimes deal with decimals. And sometimes we divide a decimal by a whole number. So thank you for your attention, Bobcats. Have a great day.